Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Homesteading Off the Grid. As you can tell from behind me here, I have quite the backyard firewood operation going on. I don't sell firewood. I burn it in our family's home. It's our primary source of heat in the winter. We've been cutting, hauling, splitting, stacking, and burning our own firewood for the entire 6-year period that we've now lived in our old house. It's built in 1903, originally as a sharecropper's house. We have a beautiful 6 acres piece of property here. Our house, other than when we burn firewood, only has baseboard heat. We had intentions of updating, putting in either central air or the ductless, etc. But our first winter, we burned wood, and what we found was that there's no better, cheaper, more efficient way to heat. If you don't have to go out there and spend possibly tens of thousands of dollars to get the most modern advancements, which will probably be outdated and replaced within the next half a dozen years anyway, why do it? So we chose not to. So along the way, for over half a dozen years or so, I learned so many tricks of the trade in regards to cutting, hauling, splitting, stacking, burning our own firewood. I want to share as many of them as I can with you here in one video. Now, I have a tendency to be long-winded. I'm going to make an attempt, an honest effort not to do that here today with this video, which will actually be recorded over a series of several days because I want to make sure I get it all in there. I'm going to try to keep it to 15 to 20 minutes, which is a big deal for me. Now, throughout the course of this lesson, or as you will, for lack of a better term, I'm going to share with you several products that I use, for which I'll put the links in the description box below to take you directly to Amazon where I purchase the products. I want to point out that these are products I've used consistently over the last 6 years. Originally, I never had any intentions of pitching these products for purposes of being paid, though now that I am, I will receive a small commission anytime you click on these links and purchase these products from the links on my video. The reason I'm showing you these products is because this is what I use. Okay, this is the primary reason. And of course, I'm doing it to earn some extra money as well with my new part-time job I've taken up. Number two, I want to point out, to prove my lack of bias with these products, I never buy the most expensive products. Now, if I were to pitch the most expensive products, my commission would be a much bigger number than it would be with the less expensive products. I'm thrifty out of a sense of having to just need to be thrifty because I'm not rolling in dough. I'm not a rich man. I'm not a wealthy man. So saving money is something that I just do by nature. So the products I'll be pitching to you hopefully will do the same thing for you. Now, with that said, we're going to jump into it. I want to get this out of the way first and let you know safety is your primary concern if you're doing all this stuff yourself. I also want to point out I have a bad back. I have chronically inflamed lower lumbar from my military days in the Army, and I served in Iraq. I was a machine gunner. From having massive, excessive amounts of weight on me, be it rucksack, assault packs, from being cinched down into the gunner's turret by cable, and from jumping out of airplanes. Okay, my back is terrible. However, if you do this properly and you focus with proper form, you can do it. I do all this myself. I'm going to show you these little tricks so you can save your back, okay? Listen, you've heard it all said, use it or lose it, right? I've got a little bit more complicated way of saying that. People who can, or people who do, such as split their own firewood, people who are active, people who are exercise, people who are into fitness, the reason these people can do these things is because they do. People who can because they do, okay? People who don't can't because they don't. If you just let your body go, if you say, well, you know, I had that injury from the military, or I had that athletic injury, football injury in high school or college, and you just stop, you'll never be able to do it again. So listen, where there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to show you how I do it, even with a bad back. Some of the rounds in here weigh over 100 pounds. So I want to point out some safety features. Anytime I'm using my wood splitter or chainsaws, which I have back here, or I'm using my splitting maul or axes, I always wear eye pro, okay? Eye protection. I've only got 2 eyes. I want to keep them both. Gloves is instrumental because I hate splinters, and the only thing worse than splitters is the pain associated with digging them out with needles. So I wear gloves when I work with firewood, and I'll put the link in here. Listen, I'm a thrifty guy. I buy these in boxes of 10, and they last me at least a year. Once they start getting nasty, you throw them away because you don't want to get sick due to the bacteria and whatnot. And then, of course, when I'm using chainsaws, the splitting maul, and the log splitter, I use earplugs, okay? I use Max earplugs because they're the least expensive. Seriously, I'm not trying to get you to click on the most expensive earplugs so I can get the biggest commissions. I'm showing you what I use because I'm thrifty. You should be too. So I'm going to put the link in here for this. You get 50 pairs. I also use these when I mow the grass around here. I have a big zero turn that I use. I want to keep what little bit of hearing I have left. I've got ear damage from military experiences as well. These work, and a 50 pack lasts me about 2 or 3 years. So let's go up here. Let's get started. Okay, so one of the ways you save your back with firewood is that you use your brain more than your back. I want you to take a look at the way I download and split my rounds. Getting the rounds in the back of the truck, that can be challenging, and I'm going to show you some of the ways I do that. I've been fortunate in this situation in that the gentleman who's given me this firewood is a friend and a neighbor who had 11 oak trees taken down recently because they were dead or dying. They were dropping limbs on his property, and he didn't want that, so we had them taken down. He's got a front end loader, and the really heavy stuff that's just too heavy to lift safely, he's actually putting in the front end of his front end loader, and we're loading it in the truck that way. The lighter stuff that I can lift, I do lift. I'm going to show you how to do that with your legs and not your back. But what's key is, and now I'm on a bit of a decline here, which is a bigger benefit, but you can do this on flat ground as well. Believe it or not, I'm a slow learner. It took me several years to learn this. I used to go get a truckload of rounds. I'd come to the house, I'd throw them off the truck, and then I'd go get more. Well, what I found is I then had to pick them up again to get them on the splitter. So I was lifting the wood twice. So what I do now is I've got this system set up where I will back the truck down to the log splitter. I make sure there's enough room for me to stand in there between the bed of the truck once it's down, the tailgate, and the splitter. And so I don't even lift these ends now. I grab them and I just turn. So I'm not doing any lifting, and then I place them on the log splitter and I split them. So even the rounds that were so heavy that we needed the front end loader to lift them, I can do this because I'm not lifting them. Now I do have to support their weight, but I do it with my back aligned. So there's no problem with that. Now you want to make sure to chock your wheels with a wooden block, set your park brake, and I've turned my front wheels to the right. So in the event the truck, God forbid, would roll, even though the park brake is set, it's in park, it's a new truck, newer, just a couple years old, and everything is chocked. If it were to roll, it's going to roll in such a way back that way to where I have an escape route. Never turn the tires the other way. You want to keep your eye on this. If I were to turn the other way and that truck were to roll while I'm standing in there, I would be trapped and I would get crushed. These are the things you've got to keep in mind. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. And when I put my wood in, I make sure it's standing up so it doesn't roll out of the truck while I'm standing here. You've got to watch for that too. Big safety feature. So I just pull it down like this, roll it over to me, and watch. I just simply take the wood, and then I'm transferring it here right on to the log splitter. And then I can split it, okay? And now what I do once I split the first half in half, because I like to split my wood down actually smaller than a lot of people do, and I'm going to tell you why, especially with this high moisture red oak I'm using. The smaller you split it, the quicker it dries, so the quicker you can burn it, and the more efficiently and better it burns in your wood stove, which is what we use, or your fireplace. So what I'll do is, once I split this one in half, okay, it's going to look like this. And I have two halves. If they're small enough, I'll put them together and roll them over, and I can quarter them at the same time. But if it's a larger piece, split it in half, I'll take one half off, and without bending my back, I'll place it back on the tailgate. So then I'll quarter this half, toss it on the pile, and then I can come back over and get this half and come back over, do the same thing. And so that way I have either quartered or eighths an entire big round of oak, and I've never had to bend or lift a single time. Okay, so let's say you're not in a situation where you have a friend or a buddy that's got a front end loader. who can put the heavy rounds in the truck for you. And some of them are so big, you simply can't lift them without tearing your back up. I've run into that situation countless times over the years, and I'm putting my earplugs in right now because I'm getting ready to do something very loud. So if you got ear pods in, take them out. If you got your volume up, turn it down. There's been times when I've had oak rounds so big, they weighed 150 pounds, and I needed to either have them or split them to even get them in the truck. So that's where a little bit more manual labor comes into play. And guys, this is wonderful. The thing I love most about splitting and stacking in my own firewood is I don't have to pay a gym membership. I mean, I get plenty of exercise doing this. I'm going to take a diamond maul. I know an old man who last time I saw him was 80, still splitting and stacking his own firewood. He calls these grenades. That's his nickname for them because that's how they work. And then I use a 10-pound sledgehammer. That might be heavy for you. You can get them 4 pounds, 6 pounds, 8 pounds. You can get them heavier if you want. I'll find a very good, thriftily priced one and put the link in the description, as well as the link to the diamond maul I use. And you simply, listen, never put it right in the center because it can get stuck. Put it a little bit off of center. If it's a larger round, you need to put a little bit more to the outside. But what you need to do is split that round down to a size that you can lift safely, because it's all about not getting hurt too. And remember your eye protection as well. You want to have your eye pro, your ear pro. Notice I'm keeping my back straight, and I'm doing all this primarily with my legs. I'm not even bending my back. Guys, I have a bad back, and this does not hurt me. Now, the wedge is flat and flush with the wood block, so I'm going to use this side of the hammer. Believe it or not, up until last year, when a Good Samaritan gifted me my gas-powered log splitter, I split all of our family's logwood or firewood with a sledgehammer and a diamond maul and a splitting maul. So if you don't have a gas-powered log splitter and you need to go that route, because you can get one of these sledgehammers for about 40 bucks, diamond maul costs you about 25. So you got $65 into your equipment versus $1,000 to $1,200 for a gas-powered splitter. I just showed you how to do that as well. And again, I did this for 4 years. I would do this with 15 truckloads of firewood a winter. Okay, so my buddy had a few links that are too long to actually fit into my log splitter. So with my ear pro on and with using my eye pro, I'm going to go ahead and cut them down. I'm going to get that on video, and we're probably going to go over 20 minutes. Sorry. Okay. But what is a firewood video without chainsaw work, right? So I want to point out what I'm going to be using, and I don't know if you can even get these on Amazon. I think you've got to go through a certified Husqvarna dealer to get these, but a couple of years ago I was fortunate enough to be able to step it up and afford a nicer saw. This is about a $400 saw. I'm going to be using this today, but let me tell you, I'm glad I worked in the more thrifty way of cutting, splitting, stacking, and burning your own firewood with the sledgehammer and the diamond maul, because for 4 or 5 years, this is what I use. This is a 18-inch Pull & Pro. These are very affordable saws. You can get these from anywhere. Sometimes when they're on sale, less than $100. If it's in season, they might be as high as $150. So you can get one of these for literally a fourth of the price of the Husqvarna. Guys, I'm just going to be brutally honest right here. I know people who will use their lack of their ability to buy the most expensive, highest quality tools or equipment out there as an excuse not to do a lot of work. Well, that's all it is it's an excuse. Let me tell you, for the 4 or 5 years that I exclusively used this 18-inch gas-powered 2-stroke Pull & Pro, it worked like a pro. I've cut up red oak rounds. I've got videos on the channel. You can go see this. 36 inches around. I decimated with that little saw right there. So if you can't afford the high-tech stuff right now, don't let that be an excuse. Don't listen to I don't want to say losers out there. Don't listen to the people who don't win. Don't believe their lies, and don't let their lies become your lies. Hey, you only got $100, $125. This will do the job. And you don't mind sweating, putting in some elbow grease, that $40 sledgehammer and that $25 diamond mall will do the job of this $1,200 wood splitter. It's going to take you more time. It's going to take you more effort. You're going to get in better shape. Okay, now that I've kind of walked you through the process, I want to show you. So I'm going to just split a couple rounds showing you what I've talked about in action. I also want to point out you need to stay hydrated anytime you're doing any sort of physical work. It's not hot. It's actually, today is Halloween as of this part of the recording. I'm in Virginia and the weather can be very tricky, and if you're out west, this holds especially more true. Might not be hot, but there's like no humidity out here today, so the moisture is being sucked out of my body without me actually sweating and feeling it. Stay hydrated. I'm using my Stanley travel trigger action thermos. I drink coffee out of it in the mornings. I like my water cold when I drink it. I'm spoiled. I lived in the Middle East, Southeast Asia for almost a decade. All I had was either warm or hot water. I like to keep my water cold, so this works. This will keep it cold as long as I'm out here working. It's so refreshing. I'll put the link to this in there, and thank you to the dozens of you who have already bought these for my links. Gotta get paid. So another advantage to cutting it down smaller, other than just the fact that it will dry faster and you'll be able to burn it quicker and it'll burn more efficiently, is that it is easier to stack. My wife, who's a tiny thing, and our son, who's not that big, he's only 11, they can carry firewood in once it's made its way to the back porch. And, you know, now we do keep some of it larger for when we're going to bed at night. We'll put on a bigger piece, but we like to make them about this size. And again, just a couple of days ago, I did this with 6 truckloads of firewood. By the time I was done, my back wasn't hurting, and I started that day with a 4-mile run. So it's about using your brain, not your back. And now let's move on to the next step of the process, which is stacking. All right, so here's a big pile of wood that we have built up after we split it, and then we're stacking it down here for now. You know, a lot of folks use wheelbarrows or some other sort of cart to drag from the pile where it's split down to where they stack it. We use sleds. You know why? Because we usually find them at thrift stores for like $3 or $4, and it works. I mean, I could pitch you a wheelbarrow and give you a link and try to get a big commission off of a $140 wheelbarrow or even $40 wheelbarrow, but when you can get a sled for 10 or 20 bucks, it works just as well. I mean, why not? So, see if I got the camera in the proper angle for you to see it. it hauls pretty much about the same amount as a wheelbarrow. Back it up a little bit. You see we got some firewood way down there, and we're gonna go talk about that here a little bit later in the video. That's stuff that we've split as long back as last year and even the year before. Been covered in seasoning down there. So it's pretty simple. Make sure you don't trap your rope by throwing firewood on top of it. But once we got it split up, just put as much as we can on here. It helps that I'm on a downhill angle here, but we do this on flat land, and these sleds are even easy to pull uphill. Now, you put however much on here you can comfortably pull, because again, we're wanting to make sure to save our backs. I can pull twice this much, but I don't want this video to go on for 30 minutes. So then you just pull it down to where you're going to stack it. Now let me tell you, one of the biggest mistakes people make is when it comes to where and how they stack their firewood. You see I can comfortably get in between these rows of firewood. A lot of people will kind of cord their wood up together to where the ends are touching. They need to be able to get air so they can dry. If you did not know this, firewood does not just evaporate its moisture out from the sides. It's got veins. Wood has veins, trees have veins. The moisture comes out of the ends through the veins. The air out here sucks it out, the lack of humidity, but this is how it loses moisture. Now, with this in mind, you want to stack your firewood where it's going to get hit by the sun or be in a nice sunny place, facing east to west. Why? Because that's how it will dry most efficiently. During the first half of the day, while the sun's coming up and making its climb on the eastern horizon, it's really hitting this into the firewood and sucking it out. After high noon until nightfall, the sun's over there on the western side, sucking the moisture out of the western end. You'll see people stack their firewood up against an outbuilding. Well, that whole back part of the firewood, and guys, I've made these same mistakes. I'm not judging anybody. I've learned this through trial and error, advice from elders who've been splitting wood a lot longer than me. That back part of that wood that you stack up against your building, and we did that the first year here to get it out of the way. We wanted it out of the way, didn't want to take it up yard space. Well, your wood will start to rot from the back end because it's not drying out. So there's that. So that's why we have this system going on here. And again, make sure it's got enough room in between the rows to air out. Time for another load. Well, the sun came out and I'm in different clothing. Just kidding. It's a different day. All right. So now I want to mention one thing I left out about stacking the firewood because it does pertain to moisture. What we're going to talk about now is controlling moisture content. We want the least amount of moisture as possible. So I want you to look at the bottom of my rows I stacked. You see how you see this wood going lengthwise this way? That's pine. We burn a minimal amount of pine inside the house. Really never. We don't burn any now. The first few years here, we ended up burning a minimal amount because it's all we had access to. You can burn pine as long as it's exceptionally dry. And we burn pine up at our campground. We got a family campground up there in the woods. It doesn't put out a lot of heat, and it does have the resin in it, which is flammable and which can be dangerous. It could lead to flue fires if you don't keep your flue clean, something we're going to talk about here in a bit too. We sacrifice the pine by way of using it as our base to stack our wood, our hardwood that the desirable hardwood that we're going to burn, like the red oak. We have cherry, we have locust. This is all red oak. You want to keep the wood up off of the ground because wood is very porous and it will work like a sponge. So even if you have it covered, which we cover all of our wood, and I'm going to show you what we use for that here in a minute. Even if it's covered, if it's making contact with the ground, it will suck the moisture up out of the ground. Now, the pine takes one for the team for us here. We use pine. We use whatever we have access to. Sometimes we'll have longer limbs that are very slim. We'll use them as poles, and we'll stack them up on poles. Got some on the porch I'll show you here in a minute we do that with. We've used timbers that we had lying around, like 4x4 timbers. anything, pallets. I'm going to show you where we've used pallets in the past because we cover a different way that way as well. So you want to keep it up off the ground to keep it from sucking up moisture like a sponge. And then of course you want to protect it from the rain. And I'm going to show you, and also just the simple act of stacking it facing east to west so it can begin that drying process is so key. So I literally, the last little clip in this video before I miraculously or mysteriously appeared and the sun was shining and I had a different outfit on, that was 2 days ago. So I was splitting this wood 2 days ago. It started raining on me before I was done, so I covered my wood splitter so it doesn't deteriorate. Left the wood there. It's a green. It was a dying tree, so it wasn't entirely green, but it's still a lot of moisture content, so I wasn't too concerned with that, okay? But now this I stacked. Still didn't cover it, but check out this difference. I went over to that wood pile. I've got the cap came off, no biggie. I've got a moisture reader that I just got off here recently. This is a new product for me. Got it for 27 bucks off Amazon. And yeah, the link's in the description box below. Simply push mode to turn on. Comes right on. And it's so simple to use. I mean, I read the instructions. I'm like, that's it. You like stick the little prongs in the wood and it'll register the moisture content. Now, ideally, you want to burn firewood that's 20% or less moisture. It's going to burn more efficiently. It's going to burn cleaner, going to produce more heat because the energy isn't being used to dry out the next little layer of wood before it can produce, before it can burn and produce heat. The drier the wood, the more energy is just used to produce heat. So I grabbed a piece of wood from the pile where it was all just kind of piled up and hadn't been stacked yet, and I dug down about a layer. So this has not been stacked. We stick this in here, poke it in as much as we can. Well, yeah, there we go. Look at that. The meter reads, well, it's coming out. It said 32%. Look at this. Can you see that? 36.8%. Okay. Now watch what happens when we took wood from the same cut and we simply stacked it facing east to west for just a couple of days. Wow. Big difference. Big difference. I hope you'll be able to see this. I've got to hold this up in here. 25%, 24%, 25%. So a difference of about 12% over just a couple of days because we're allowing the sun to hit this a half a day on the east side, half a day on the west on the back side. So another mistake people make. I was talking the last time we were filming about how they'll pile it up against the side of an outbuilding. A lot of times you'll see people, they'll stack their wood and they just leave it in a big old pile like this, and they just go and they take it off the top. Listen, once you get past that top layer, just one or two pieces width down, it's just not drying out. If it does dry, there's this thing called condensation. The moisture just collects on the wood above it, and then it drips back down. It's gonna mold, it's gonna rot. Now, with this said, protect it from soaking up water like a sponge from the ground. You also want to cover it on top. Now, there's multiple ways to do this, multiple items you can use. This is what we use in a situation like this. We're stacking this lengthwise in a pretty sizable part of our yard here. I buy vapor lining. I just got a new roll recently because I knew we were getting some more wood. Once I unfold this, it's 3 feet wide, and this is 100 yards or 100 feet long. So this wood pile right here, for example, is 20 feet in width. So I can roll this over. Oh, I wanted to show you this too. This is a piece of red oak. Came from the same buddy and neighbor of ours. It was 11 months ago he brought it down. He actually split this and stacked it for us. It's crazy. I remember it's 11 months because it was the end of November and it's the beginning of November now. The next year, I'd run a local 5K road race in town that day, and we came home and it was like the wood fire or the firewood fairy was in our yard, like stacking wood and stuff for us. So I helped him. We covered it up. So this wood was split and covered last year. So we went from 36% from being split the other day, lay it on a pile. Then we went down to 25% just from having it stacked so it could start air drying. Check this out. Having been split and covered for 1 year, it's down to 11.3%. 11.3%. This wood is ready to burn, okay? And we have this stuff stacked all over the place here. Makes a big difference. Red oak, ideally, I mean, you can, if you cut it, if you split it and you stack it, 3 or 4 months later, it will burn, and it'll burn well. But you give it a year, it burns great. You give it 2 years, you give it 3 years, the more time you give it before it, of course, starts to deteriorate, even if it is covered, the better it burns, the more heat it produces. So what we do as far as covering when we stack lengthwise like this is we just take this vapor lining, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you get down here on the end. You can barely see me there, I know that. But this makes it easy because I just roll it out the entire length of the stack. Like, especially when the vapor lining is new and I've got all 100 feet worth, I know I'm going to be able to cover 5 rows of this. And then when I get to the end, simply take my box cutter and slice it off, being ever so carefully not to cut myself, ever so careful. And then I've got it rolled up and I'm ready to move on to the next pile. So, but a lot of you don't have this much property. You might have more limited space. Another thing that we use to stack our firewood on so that it dries out really nicely is wooden pallets, which you can get for free. So let me show you how we do that. All right, here's the example I wanted to show you of another way we stack wood. You can see right along through here, we've got these stacked on wooden pallets we got for free. We go to Craigslist and type in wooden pallets, and they're everywhere. If you live within half an hour or so of a sizable town, they're trying to give them away. So I get them for some of my woodworking projects I do in my wood shop, and we'll also use some of the not so pretty ones to stack firewood on. And since you get more of a squared stack here, you see we have 3 rows. We put these under tarps, and tarps can be pricey, but we finally found some on Amazon that are only like $9.99. And if you're a Prime member, you know, you get free shipping, and they come in like 2 days. So we make sure to stay stocked in those, a few ahead, if we're doing pallet stacking. I want to play with my new toy, so bear with me. You can fast forward past this part if you want, or you can bear with me and check it out. I'm curious because underneath this black vapor lining, we got a couple piles of red oak that I split and stacked myself about 1 year and 3 months ago. And then this was red oak. I split and stacked about 3 or 4 months ago, and then I split and stacked this just here in the last month, this front pile. So I just want to do a comparison of split, stacked, facing east to west. But of course, like if it's not going to rain for a while, I'll let my wood air out for a few days. We're not going to get rain again for another week. So anything I split in the next week, I'll stack, but I'm just going to let it air out before I cover it. But let's check the moisture content from stuff from 1 year ago to stuff from like a month ago, okay? And I'll admit, one of the things we've learned here over our 6 years here doing this has been the importance of covering your wood. We didn't our first couple of years. Thought, oh, heck, if it gets wet, it'll dry out again. It would rot. And we ended up having some rotten wood, and we tried to burn rotten wood. Look at this. This is still beautiful, isn't it? Looks like it just got split. Looks like the tree just came down. It's because it's been covered. So, turn my meter on. By the way, this meter, which is really simple to use, if you forget that you've been using it, it'll shut itself off after 10 minutes so that you conserve the battery life, or you just hold down the same button you push to turn it on and it turns off. So, and you can do centigrade in case you're living anywhere outside of America or Liberia, Northern African nation, which was a repatriated slave state after the Civil War. That's why they're the only nation other than the U.S. that uses Fahrenheit and feet and yards rather than meters, centimeters, and centigrade. Okay, so let's go. Yeah, I know, too much information. Shut up. Test the wood. All right. Wow. 8.3%. Look at that. See if we can get on here even lower. You stick the prongs. 8.3%. Isn't that beautiful? 8% moisture. After a year, this was going to be excellent to burn. Oh, man. I'm going to take that to the house and put that on the wood rack inside the house. All right, now let's check this stuff here. It's been split and drying. Here's a little piece. Now this is going to dry out quicker because it is smaller. It's another reason I like to cut them down small, but it should be easier for me to show you this. 15.4. Look at that. Because I did cut it down smaller, it's ready to burn now, but it's still got twice as much moisture in it as a larger piece that's been drying for a year. So have patience, give it time, cover it, keep it up off the ground, cover it, give it time. It's going to be good to go. Now, I want to talk about this too real quick. You see, looks like we're out here in the boonies. We're a considerable distance away from the house. There's the house. I've had people ask in videos before, why do you guys stack your wood so far away from the house? That's a long way to carry it. I backed the truck up here, and I have a Dodge Ram 1500. Do they have links to those on Amazon? I'm gonna find one. Gotta get paid. Okay, so it just so happens that I can let the tailgate down and fill that tailgate with wood, and then I just simply pull forward and then back into the back porch, and we unload the exact amount to fill the wood rack that we have inside the house. So no, it takes like 15 minutes. But the reason that we keep the wood so far away from the house is because firewood attracts pests. Now, there are some cute little bunny rabbits living under here, sure. But there's also some hideously ugly field rats, snakes, mice. The biggest thing, though, is oak beetles. You get these white larvae. They love oak. That's why they call them oak beetles. And they turn into these big, black, monstrous-looking creatures that will eat wood, and they'll eat your house. So, yeah, it might be a little bit easier for you if you keep your firewood closer to the house. But the closer the firewood is to the house, the closer the pests are to the house as well. Never forget, termites and cockroaches live in this stuff as well. All right, now we're on the back porch of the house, and this is our next to the last stop of our backyard firewood assembly line, so to say. And I know what you're probably saying at this point. You're saying, why does this guy have banana trees in random places around his yard? Isn't he in Virginia? Yeah, but my wife's from the Philippines, and she likes seeing banana trees. They remind her of home. So we've got them placed to where you can see one from every point on our property, no matter which angle you look. Seriously, I did some pretty detailed planning for that. But we do. So that's why the banana trees are everywhere. You probably saw the one behind the firewood pile over there. That's for when she's looking out the kitchen window. Okay, so what I'll do is, and this is to prevent being in the house, watching a movie at 10 o'clock on a cold 20-degree night when it's snowing, and only have 2 pieces of wood on the firewood rack in the house. It's like, oh no. Well, I keep some stacked up out here on the back porch. I haven't put the entire stack here yet because it's been an exceptionally warm year. We haven't even started burning yet, even though it's the first week of November. Typically, we start burning the last week of September at night. Nights in October. We'll start burning at some point during the days in November. We haven't burned at all this year. It's been so warm. So I don't want to bring the wood over too early because I don't want to bring the pests over too early. And after we have a good hard freeze, that takes care of most of them, and it's not a concern after that. I want to point out, I have my Son Joe manual log splitter here. It's a hydraulic splitter. I keep this here because sometimes I've been in a hurry splitting wood and maybe I didn't cut them quite down as small as I like to. The reason I like to burn smaller pieces of wood, like this piece, I tested it a minute ago. It's like 9% moisture. It's been seasoning for a couple of years. Is because it's all about airflow. The more air that can flow up underneath that wood as it burns in the wood stove or the fireplace, the better it's going to burn, because as you know, oxygen is part of the burn. It's a fuel needed for the burning process. So I'll use this manual splitter, which I got after 2 years straight of just splitting my wood with a sledgehammer and a maul and a splitting axe. I invested a couple of $100 in this. You can get these on Amazon for I think $229 or so. We'll put the link in the description box below. Gotta get paid! They work great. One of the biggest benefits is if you're a little bit older, maybe you're not as physical as some of us, this is simple to use. My wife barely weighs more than 100 pounds. She uses it with ease. Our son, we got this when he was 5 or 6, maybe 7, I think 6. He was a tiny little thing. He could use it. Let me show you how easy this is to use. So I've got a piece of red oak here. Maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker than I want it to be. I simply stick it in here like this on the sled. Make sure this hydraulic mechanism is tight. Now it's got 2 gears, You can't really tell the difference until you make contact with the wood. There we go. You start pushing and you realize the left side, that's your high gear. That's where it's starting to get hard. So then your right side is a low gear. It's cracked. So now I can use both again. If I use them both at the same time, it does it quicker. It's really simple. And now you see that instead of having one large piece, I have two smaller pieces. So it's going to burn more efficiently because it'll get more oxygen. Then after you use your hydraulic splitter, make sure to always take the pressure off. Or you'll wear out your springs. All right, and this here is the last stop of our firewood assembly line, of course. We've got the wood rack, which again, I simply have not put wood on yet because I don't want to bring the pests in. We should be burning by now, but it's just been too warm. Here's a wood stove, and of course I'll remove all these decorations and everything. Halloween just passed. I actually make these in my wood shop, and we have an Etsy store. The link's in the description box below. I like this one. I cut the eyes and ears, or the eyes and the mouth out, and then you can burn a candle behind it. We use this Yankee Candle Spiced Pumpkin. Would there be a link for that on Amazon? Check out. All right, made these acorns. Now listen, I know I'm getting derailed here. This was supposed to be a 15 to 20 minute long video, and the way I see it, if you're still here, you've obviously decided to continue watching. So, okay. I want to tell you a couple of things here. Listen, you have got to make sure your flue is clean before you start burning. House fires are a real thing. Biggest cause is Christmas lights, believe it or not. Most house fires take place during December and January because of faulty Christmas lighting. But number two, of course, is, birds build nests in those things. There are bees' nests in those things. Make sure your flue is clean before you burn. Look at that. As I'm getting out what I use to clean my flue with, because I do it myself now. I'd paid a guy to come by every other year, $125 to do it. I got a kit myself that you attach to the end of a drill for $85 on Amazon. I did it myself. It took like 20 minutes. This oil painting, let me tell you a story about that. I got it at the Goodwill for 99 cents because it reminded me of a story of an elderly grandfather, Native American Indian, was telling his grandson. He told his grandson about how we all have two wolves that live inside of us. There's the dark wolf, the bad wolf, that's filled with anger, rage, hate, jealousy, narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy. But yet there's a kind wolf inside us all as well, that is the good wolf, the positive wolf, the wolf that wants to help others and who wants to be kind to themselves. And these wolves fight a constant battle inside us for domain, for possession of our souls. And the grandson says, "Wow, grandfather, which wolf wins?" And the grandfather says, "The one that you choose to feed." Guys, control your thoughts, control your life. You better, it's real. All right, so this is really neat. I got the 30 feet long version of this. They're just these flexible, bendable, bendy sticks that attach together one by one. They've got a female and a male, or a gender neutral end, if that offends you. They've got two pieces that go together, whatever you want to call it, okay? And what you do is you hook the bottom part of it up to your drill. Comes with a mechanism that you screw down into your drill, tighten your drill, and then you hook one of those ends up to that. And then it has this thingy-madoodle that goes on the very end. After you piece these together, look at that, it just clips right on like that. Got to push in the gender of your preference end and insert it into the other gender of your preference end. And then so once you detach your thingy-mabob, you stick in the thingy-madoodle, which is connected to your drill, and you push the drill button, and this spins, and you just slowly push it up in there like that. And then when you get to the end of that one, then you attach another one, and then you do the same thing all the way up, And then it was simple. I did it, and I'm not very good at like doing much of like fixing things or do it yourself type stuff. I'll never ever hire that guy to come clean my flue again. I will do it myself every year, every other year, using this. So that's pretty much it, folks. Got football practice later today anyway. So I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you learned some of the basics, and I certainly hope you go into the description box and click on all those Amazon links for the products I displayed in this video. Seriously, can't fault a guy for being honest, can you? But most importantly, I hope you'll join us again for another video next time. See you then. Oh crap, my wife's home. I'm wearing my boots on the rug.